Hi, everyone. It's been a long time coming to you from the corner of Mike's office. For the next book talk, Mike and I have been rereading the book, so we've been leapfrogging each other. And he read this book, and so I had to read the next book, but that means you'll get two book talks in this week. And so what we're talking about today came out in 1984, and it's one of our favorites, Jitterbug Perfume. And a lot of you have, not a lot of you, but if any of you've ever wondered where my tattoo comes from, it comes from this book. This is the book in which this word, which I don't actually know how to pronounce, um, is used a few times. It's pretty interesting. So the characters we have, of course, Tom Robbins, who loves to play with time, language, space, all those good things. Um, we have beats, we have bees, we have genius waitresses, we have uh, bohemian kings, Indian women. We have the god Pan as a main character in this book. And there's also some other minor characters that are perfumer, I don't know, people who make perfume. So perfume is a big part of this storyline, and the certain scent connects all these storylines. Really, that's the only thing that connects them is this desire to get this scent, which is interesting. Just using the Deus ex machina, like for people finding this ancient blue bottle and it ending up in people's hands, blah blah blah. Like just all these things where you're like, this really couldn't happen in real life. But anyway, the it starts in Seattle during a solar eclipse. Paris also experiences a solar eclipse, and so and it's also New Orleans does not experience it, but they're all those are the three perfumer people that are connected to this particular perfume in this blue bottle. And so after that, we meet kind of the main guy. I call him Alabar, and he's our Bohemian king who just doesn't want to die. And so he just takes up this quest to stop aging. And so it's real resonant for some people, especially, turning 50. I wonder how do you stop aging? And so he works on that, and eventually he re-meets up with Kudra, who is a woman, an Indian woman that he had met earlier on in his journeys. And together they develop this makes it sound so simple. Develop this way to like live forever and not age, which, as you can imagine, causes all sorts of problems because they are not aging, and so they have to keep moving around and doing all these different things to avoid being, considered problematic. And so, what are their plans is after they're in Paris for a while, so there's Paris connection. They plan to go to America because what they've done is they've gotten Pan, and Pan is dying with the rise of Christianity, which is also another theme always in Tom Robbins' books, is of the old gods and the old ways. And so Pan is dying, and they think if they can get to America, of course, this is the 1700s, that they can find a place for Pan to flourish and for them to, hide out, basically. And so they decide to get there in an interesting way that doesn't actually work for all of them, but Alabar and Pan do get to the US. And we don't see Kudra for a while, not until the very last pages of the book, but just know that she comes back. And you have to stick around for her story. I mean, when you read the book, which is in the very last pages. So they don't, it gets complicated, the philosophy, like why do they not want to die and that kind of thing. So I'll just read one quote. Um, about it, it's this idea of like they get through a snowstorm and they almost die, but they don't die, and they're pondering why they didn't die. This is Alabar and Kudra. He ventured the idea that they had survived because he had reached a point where he did not take his desire to live seriously. So he had transcended this urge that he had. He says, my desire was no less than before, you understand, but I no longer identified with the desire. Perhaps that is why desire causes men calamity. By identifying with our desires and taking them too seriously, we not only increase our susceptibility to disappointment, we actually create a climate inhospitable to the free and easy fulfillment of those desires. This is a constant theme through Robin's books, and this Alabar's wanting not to die, is that there's so much good things out there that he wants to try, but also to not over identify with our desires and become caught up in them. And if you or Erlecta, you'll find, means roughly translate, because it can't translate directly, but roughly translates into lighten up. So it's this idea to not become one with our desires, and to lighten up a little bit. Anyway, so it keeps going. We meet some other characters, literal characters, a guy named Wiggs Danny Boy. He, Alabar becomes friends with Einstein and claims Einstein's last words were something to do with Erleichta, which is actually possible, but not probable. When Einstein did pass, he spoke his last words in a language that was unfamiliar to the nurse. And so Tom Robbins claims through Alabar that it was Erleichta, which is probably not probable, but since we don't know what Einstein's last words were, it could be possible. So everyone ends up in New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and then interesting things ensue. There are beets, there are blue bottles, there are the stench of pan, there are bees. There's just international intrigue. It's a good book, and it's one of his shorter ones. Again, 1984. It presages the next book, Skinny Legs and All, in a lot of ways. And there's this big gap between this book and the next one. Some of the characters are the same, some of his references are the same, and in Skinny Legs and All, we'll continue this theme of the kind of old ways and what happened when Christianity sort of came in and turned, pagan traditions into Christian traditions, which is interesting because we just celebrated Easter, which is a very complicated holiday for some people because it's about bunnies and it's about Jesus. And Tom Robbins loves opening up those conundrums for us in that, or those contradictions in those things, and pointing them out with excellent language, better than I did today. But I do think if you want to know a little bit more about how to lighten up, it's a really fun book to read. I read it every few years, and hope you enjoy it. Thanks.